Welcome to today's Explainer. I actually put this together to feel like flipping through a topper student's beautifully maintained notebook. Think red pen for the headings, crisp blue ballpoint for the details, and neat little hand-drawn boxes highlighting the crucial facts. We really need that level of focus today because we're exploring what is absolutely the single most important part of English grammar, verbs. But we aren't just looking at them as random words on a piece of lined paper. We're going to see how verbs act as the actual, literal engine driving every single sentence you speak, read, or write.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because we really need to debunk a massive misconception I definitely picked up back in grade school. You know the one, right? We were all taught that verbs are just action words. Running, jumping, shouting. But listen, if you rely on that definition alone, a huge portion of the English language is going to feel like a total mystery to you.
So let's just redefine it completely right here. A verb expresses an action, for sure, but it also expresses a state of being, or an occurrence. Basically, it tells us what the subject does, what happens to it, or simply what it is. Just think about the contrast here. Take the sentence, Rahul plays cricket. Plays, well, that's a crystal clear action. But then look at this one. She is a doctor. The word is doesn't show anyone running or jumping around, right? But it firmly establishes her state of being.
The stakes here are absolutely absolute. Without a verb, a sentence is completely incomplete. Like we said, it's the heart, the engine. Think about it. If you have a car with shiny new wheels and an amazing custom paint job, but there's no engine under the hood, you literally aren't going anywhere. If you just say, Rahul, a student, your communication completely stalls out. You absolutely need that engine to say, Rahul is a student.
All right, so to really understand how this engine works, we're going to break this down into 6 easy-to-read sections. 1. The heart of a sentence. 2. Action and state verbs. 3. Helpers and modals. 4. Objects and rules. 5. Form, tense, and voice. And finally, 6. Spotting verbs like a pro.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the heart of a sentence. This is where we find main verbs, which are the heavy lifters carrying the core meaning of any statement you make.
Moving right along to Section 2, action and state verbs.
This is where we really get to pop the hood and look inside. On one hand, we've got action verbs, also known as dynamic verbs. These are your physical or mental actions. Physical, like she writes a letter, or mental, like I remember your name. But contrasting that, we have stative verbs. These describe states, conditions, feelings, or possession. When you say, she knows the answer, or this house belongs to my uncle, literally nothing is physically moving. It's entirely a state of being.
Now, an engine needs belts and fluids to keep it running smoothly, which brings us to Section 3, helpers and modals.
First up, we have our primary auxiliary verbs, the helpers. They assist the main verb to form tenses, voices, or questions. There are 3 big families you need to know. The be family, am, is, are, was, were. The have family, have, has, had, and the do family. So when you say, she is reading, reading is your main action, but the word is acts as the helper verb that sets the tense.
Then we have a very specific, super interesting type of helper, modal auxiliary verbs. These are words like can, could, may, might, will, must. What they do is inject a very specific mood into the sentence. They express ability, permission, possibility, or obligation. I mean, there's a massive difference between saying we obey the rules and we must obey the rules. Throwing in that modal verb, must, completely changes the engine's torque. It adds absolute obligation.
Let's jump right into Section 4, objects and rules.
This brings us to the ultimate showdown between transitive and intransitive verbs. Look, a transitive verb is kinda needy. It absolutely requires a direct object to make sense. Imagine a friend walks up to you and just says, she bought. You'd instantly ask, wait, bought what? The sentence is totally incomplete. But if they say, she bought a laptop, boom, laptop is the object, which makes bought a transitive verb. An intransitive verb, on the other hand, is entirely independent. The baby cried, or birds fly. You don't need to ask, cried what? The action is 100% complete on its own.
And while we're on the topic of structure, we absolutely have to talk about linking verbs. These guys don't show action at all. Instead, they act like a giant equal sign, connecting a subject to its description, which, in grammar terms, we call a subject complement. We're talking about words like be, become, or seem. In the sentence, she is a teacher, the word is just links she directly to teacher. Or think about the soup tastes delicious. Tastes just links soup to delicious. Simple as that.
All right, keeping the momentum going, here is Section 5, form,
tense, and voice.
Here is a pretty wild fact. Every single English verb has exactly 5 principal parts or forms. Let's track this with the verb write. First, you have the base form, write. Then, the third person singular, writes. The past tense, wrote. The present participle, where we add the ing, writing. And finally, the past participle, written. If you want to master English tenses, you absolutely have to know how to seamlessly cycle through these 5 forms.
But here is where the English language throws a massive wrench into the gears. We've got regular verbs and irregular verbs. Regular verbs are polite. They follow the rules. To make them past tense, you just slap on an ed or a d. Work becomes worked. Play becomes played. Easy. Irregular verbs, though, they do whatever they want. They completely break the ed rule. Go doesn't become goed, it becomes went. Eat becomes ate. This is exactly why memorization is so key for irregular verbs. There's no trick. You really just have to know them.
Beyond just tense, verbs also completely control the voice of the sentence. In the active voice, the subject is the one doing the driving. Rahul wrote the letter. Rahul is the one actually performing the action. But if we shift our focus over to the receiver of the action, we suddenly get the passive voice. The letter was written by Rahul. It is the exact same information, but by slightly changing the verb structure, we completely change the entire focus of the sentence.
Finally, for this section, we have to distinguish between finite and non-finite verbs. A finite verb is locked into a specific tense and subject. She plays. They played. It changes. But a non-finite verb, it doesn't change based on the subject or the tense at all. We're talking about things like infinitives, like to read, or gerunds, which are verbs ending in ing that actually just act like nouns. Like if I say, swimming is good exercise. Swimming is technically a verb form, but right here, it's acting as the subject of the sentence. Kind of crazy, right?
And that brings us to our final stop, Section 6, Spotting Verbs Like a Pro.
Think of this as your interactive, everyday mental checklist. Whenever you encounter a tricky sentence, just run down these 4 steps. Number 1, ask, what is the subject actually doing? If it's a physical or mental action, boom, you found your action verb. Number 2, does it describe a state or condition? If yes, that's a stative verb. Number 3, is it just assisting another word or maybe showing obligation? That's going to be your helper or modal. And number 4, ask, does this thing need an object to make sense? That'll tell you instantly if it's transitive or intransitive.
Bringing absolutely everything we just learned together into one cohesive, beautifully organized view, we can clearly see how all these different types, from action and stative all the way to transitive and linking, have totally distinct, vital functions. They all work together perfectly to keep the sentence moving forward.
So as we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. The very next time you sit down to write an email, an essay, or literally even just a quick text message, take a second to look closely at the verbs you're choosing. Ask yourself, is your engine actually running smoothly? Are you using precise, high-energy action verbs, or are you maybe leaning a little too much on stative linking verbs? Because understanding these gears doesn't just make you a better grammarian. It makes you a clearer, punchier, and far more powerful communicator. Thanks for joining me. Keep analyzing those sentences, and I'll see you in the next explainer.